Right. And he's like, you're playing tackle. He was just done doing it. I don't.
Georgia is going to kick it off for us.
I will call the technology committee to order, and I will now turn it over to Mr. Hill.
Good evening, everybody. Hello. All right, I only have a short agenda tonight. I have two items on the agenda. The first is a technology device overview, kind of give everybody an idea of how many devices and things that we have out there for our students. So I ran numbers today. The Chromebooks that we have checked out at Peters Elementary, we have 400 Chromebooks checked out to students. And again, just remember these numbers are as of today, so they fluctuate daily. I feel like we get registrations and withdrawals on a daily basis beginning of the year. At Slatington Elementary, we currently have 488 Chromebooks checked out to students. Middle school, we have 238 Chromebooks checked out to students. High school, we have 506 checked out to students. And also at the high school, just a reminder, we do still have some Windows laptops as well. We have a video production lab where we have 25 HP laptops set up for video production. We also have 20 set up in the tech ed lab. And we also have a cart that they use for like digital art projects for Photoshop, things like that, and we have 25 in there. So that's kind of like an overview of what we have for student devices at all the schools. The other thing is our T-Mobile hotspots. We currently have 100 T-Mobile hotspots. We have 30 that we actually have a paid plan for, they're unlimited paid plan, and then we have 70 that are on a T-Mobile free plan that give the students use as well. Currently, our numbers went down since last year. Currently, we only have 21 of those signed out at this time. But again, we're only paying for 30 of those out of the 100 that we have. We're only paying for 30 of those. So we have 21 signed out, but we do find that fluctuates throughout the year, and I would anticipate that would go up a little bit. Last year, I believe we had about 25 or 26 signed out, like midway through the year. So right now, we're at 21. So does anybody have any question about the technology or where we're at with student devices?
You said you have the Adobe Suite on the Windows. Is that on the Chromebook too? Or?
No, we only have that on the Windows right now. Yep. And those are the ones that they use in those labs. But we do have devices available if students need to check them out to take them home. We do have laptops available for the students to take home, like if they have classes and they have a project. We had a few students utilize that last year. They asked us to check some out. We did, so we do have some available. Yep. Yep. You're welcome. Any other questions about that? Okay, the next thing I have on there is just a quick update again on the E-Rate wireless project. As you know, we are replacing a wireless system throughout the district, and I believe I talked about this last committee as well. Currently, all the purchased equipment is on site. We have an inventory waiting to install it. And right now, we are in the process of configuring the wireless network. We started doing that this past week, so we're trying to get the network all configured first. And from there, we will start installing the new access points throughout the district. So we can run the our current wireless network, we can run simultaneous with the new network. So we will start doing that. I anticipate that's going to start sometime this month. I already spoke to Mr. Stephen Hawes and Mr. Kyle Kramer. They did offer to come and work a different shift to help out with the installation of that project. So what we're looking at is possibly having them work maybe around 1 in the afternoon to 1 to 7 or 1 to 8, whatever the time would be. And that way what they could do is maybe come in, catch up on some of their work, and then in the evenings they can get in the classroom so we're not affecting classrooms and things like that. So that's our plan as of now. And then Ms. Snyder and myself can kind of handle the tech support, up until noon or 1 o'clock till they come in, we can kind of handle it. And then they can come in, do a little tech support, and then they can do some wireless installation. That's our plan. So we anticipate starting that sometime in September. Hopefully I'll have a better update for you next committee meeting.
Mr. Hill, will there be, for security of those gentlemen being here, the safety and security, not the security, but the safety of them, will the custodians and that, they'll be here, somebody else will be on site with them after hours?
Yes, they are on site. Yes.
Just for
Yep.
security for that associate?
Yep.
Our night shift custodians and maintenance are, their shift ends at 11 p.m.
Perfect.
Yep. So there will be people
Thank
on
you.
site.
Great idea to do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, because I
Thank you.
asked them if they were interested in doing something like that, and they both said, oh, yeah, we would gladly do it, so, didn't have to, they're very good to work with. Both those employees are great to work with, and they actually offered, they said they'd be happy to do a shift like that, and they felt it'd be easier too, because then you're not working around students and stuff, we can get in the classrooms and just do what we have to do, so.
Appreciate their flexibility.
Yeah, that's great. Timing's everything.
So that's all I have. Does anybody have any other questions for technology?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, then I will close technology and I will open building and grounds. And I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you. So first on my agenda is the new quote for the new rigging for the high school auditorium. So I got a quote last year. It was a one-time purchase approval of $200,000. The quote came in at $199,982.
I was looking for the $999.
So he got it as close as he could.
Before tax.
Well, with the best product that he could. So with this, it's already a great increase from what they've had before. So now we'll have 2 variable speed motors. Before it was 3 steady speed motors. So the 2 of the motors are actually variable speed, run a lot faster than the old style. We still have 1 fixed speed motor, but the idea is to have that in the back of a static, something that doesn't move a lot because it doesn't move very fast. It's a programmable control panel where they actually have presets. So Shuey or whoever's putting on the theater can actually determine where they want these to stop at, and it's preset. So a student walks over, hits a button, and it automatically goes to that spot. The old system, you could only raise and lower 1 rigging at a time. This one, they can do all 3 at once, just by a touch of the button. It's a lot better than the old system, just in technology, just from the technology side, it's a lot better. The quote is everything they're needed. My electrician will do the electrical hookup. This company, who is also CoStar, will take care of everything else. So with the board's approval, I'd like to put it on for Monday's second approval.
I'm good with that.
Yes.
Not, just because permits are on my mind. There's no permits or anything needed for this.
They're
that we
gonna
have to
take
go
care of
through.
everything, but no, it's in-house, so there won't be any, it's installing a system that is
Perfect.
already in there. Yeah.
The no slating pins like a weenie bits.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. But the kids are gonna be thrilled,
Absolutely.
and the people running it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I think
Thank
theater
you
will
for supporting
be
it.
quite happy, yes. Thank you.
Will that be up and ready for the upcoming fall,
So
or
there,
and or spring?
he's telling me it's gonna take 2 to 3 weeks to install it, but that's after he gets all the material. So after Monday's approval, I will actually call him to see how fast they can get the material and go from there. I'm hoping it won't be installed the same time as the sound system, because that's actually a lot sooner. But I'm hoping at least maybe this summer they can get it in, so that it will be ready for next year.
For next year.
Yeah.
Sounds good, thank you.
Because again, it'll have to be shut down, just like the sound system. The auditorium, we won't allow, they will have people in there for 2 to 3 weeks. So I think this summer would probably be the best time to do it. But if he gets the material sooner, I can absolutely look at maybe getting it in sooner.
Right, best shot would be for the spring musical.
Yeah.
But kind of the mercy of supply of
Yeah.
materials.
So next is, again, last year, we had talked about getting vans for the school district. Instead of paying Christ, getting 2 10-occupant vans. So it's a driver plus 9 passengers. So I went out and asked and got a couple quotes from a couple dealerships. This was the best price we could get. So for a 9 or 10-occupant, 9-passenger with the upfit came to $58,640. Now, the last quote we had, which was June of last year, I believe, was $55,000. So we're getting an increase of about roughly $3,000 and change every year. Now,
Pretty normal.
the dealership said also, this would take a year to get. So we'd have to order it through the dealership then goes to the manufacturer. They will actually have to build it for us. And they said it takes up to a year. They're no longer carrying these on the dealerships because they're not being sold fast enough. So a lot of them are just wasting away, so they're actually building them by request only. Now,
That's per van.
Sounds good.
that would be per
Per
van.
van, and you're
Yes.
looking for,
2.
2. So now, the second page here is roughly who could use these vans. Now, last year alone, we used we spent about $9,500 in trips. And that was the clubs that could afford to pay price to take them somewhere. This is a list of, so what I did was I went to every principal and said, give me a list of the clubs that you have that could benefit from the school district having their own vans. This is just a quick list. Us at the district office, we talked around, if there's a staff conference that more than, say, 2 people are going to, you could use the van. Site visits, I know they went and looked at the lunch and learn. A bunch of people went to lunch and learn.
Mhm.
They could have taken a van instead of a bunch of people driving. A lot of these clubs don't go anywhere because they can't afford to finance price. So that's just a quick list that we could get together, just to show you. Brian Geist came up with the track and field, so we did have to pay for 2, Sherry, 2?
Yep.
So 2 vehicles.
Yep.
For them to rent to take kids to
And it
track and
was,
field.
I want to say $650 a vehicle, so
Yeah.
about
Well,
20.
basically, once these are paid off, we're gonna save a lot of money because we're not gonna need to
Sure. Yep.
lease.
Yep,
Right.
absolutely, yep. Yeah, so we
Sounds
wouldn't
good.
have to go to Christ and
Right.
pay them. The biggest thing I think, and I think a lot of the principals would agree, is this opens the door to a lot of clubs that couldn't go anywhere because they can't pay for it.
As long as they have a driver,
Right, absolutely, yep.
there won't be any, basically, vehicle costs.
Yep, yep. So the easiest way is I went to Sean Wanamaker and asked him, so the shortest trip, the cheapest trip would be from here to the environmental center, it still costs $69.
Take a walk.
Right. But what I'm saying is, so from here to there would cost you $69.
I understand, yeah.
And there's
I
some
do,
clubs
sure.
that just don't have the funds to do that.
I'm glad we went this way. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Um,
And nothing you can get sooner as far as?
No. No, I mean, so the only thing I can do is, once we get the go-ahead, is to call up the dealership again and see if they have any of their other dealerships might have one in stock, but a 10 occupant van isn't standard.
Oh, okay.
Your standard's 12. But because we're a school district, if we would go 12, it would have to be listed as a bus.
Right.
And then we'd have to get inspected as a bus.
Yeah.
We'd have to have a special
Yeah,
license.
Which we don't want to go
license.
to.
Right. So that's why if it's a 10 occupant, that's how we can get around that. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so unfortunately, in order to get that 10 occupant, we have to order it.
Sherry, does that increase anything on our insurance, or do we have to do anything administratively for those
The
who
only-
would be
I
driving?
mean, obviously, there would be the insurance cost to insure the vehicles, just like your regular car vehicle at home. But no, it doesn't cost us anything more. We, like when, at times when I want to say football or somebody would use that extra van that's around to put like, you know, equipment in to take somewhere, I just need a copy of whatever football coach is driving the van. I send it to our insurance company so that they know that we're authorizing them to drive the van. So in case anything happens, they're an insured driver underneath the van.
Do you have an estimate about how much that will be? I mean, is it similar to,
How much the actual van would be
Insurance.
for the insurance, I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be much.
I'm
but
just
it-
looking at return on investment, that if
Yep.
you're looking at $60,000 for the van,
Right.
you're probably looking at $3,000 a year
That might
between
be high,
insurance
but
and
yeah.
maintenance,
Oh, well,
your gas, and all of that you're starting to take. Chances are it's gonna last 10 years. Just doing that return on investment, that if,
Yeah, I would suspect that it's gonna last longer than 10 years.
I would agree,
Because
but-
there will be a lot,
Just to
the
do
entire
quick
summer,
math.
3 months, it will unlikely be on the road.
yeah,
right.
just trying easy math.
And a lot of the trips are shorter, I mean, than using mileage on it.
I would say very
Overall,
likely they're going to be
overall.
overall shorter trips, right?
The only trips that are gonna be longer is if track and field
States.
use it to go to
Right, to
state,
states,
or
yep.
wrestling uses it to go to states. I mean, that's where the mileage comes in when they go out there. Most of the stuff is in our area, our local area.
How many groups would still need to use a larger van? Are there lots of the groups that would need to do that? Because I saw you had some 16.
Yeah, so there are some larger ones. I didn't really ask for the larger clubs, but there are a few that would still need a bus, but I think the majority of them would still, if we had 2 vans,
Oh, okay.
looking at 18 kids, you
Right,
know,
gotcha.
or 18 occupants that you could drive around.
Could we make do with one, or do we need both?
Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, a lot of them are over 9. There's probably more over 9 than there is under 9. I mean, absolutely, if the board would rather us only have one, that's what we make do with.
I would recommend against that, because as soon as we get to 10, then we're looking at a plus again.
Right.
Here, we still have an option of doing 2, even if it's a larger, small club, 16 kids, we can get them there without having to go through Christ. I think this is also going to make them more available for us, instead of having to try to go back and forth with Christ, because the other part with Christ is we have to assume that they have a driving force when we need it.
Plus, when we get off, the only extras would be the maintenance and insurance then, I mean, it becomes less cost to us.
The nice thing too is it does open the door for those clubs that can't afford it, to
Mhm.
send it on a school bus or another bus. So it gives them other options and opportunities to do things
Mhm.
that I think is a benefit for the kids to want to go do something, or even make a suggestion, let's go here.
Absolutely, and I think that's one reason why the administration pursued this and wanted me to pursue this longer, because we think it is going to open the doors for a lot of smaller clubs to go out there and see stuff.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, you know, we're talking about, obviously, we're revamping more into our music program. So hopefully we'll have a chorus program back. I remember when I was in high school, we would go down to the senior citizens' homes during this time of the year, during Christmas time, and, carol through the halls and stuff they have the van then to be able to do that, to go to local places, to do that kind of stuff versus taking a bus, and it's something that they may want to do, that it opens the door for them.
I mean, it's endless. I mean, we just started the crochet club.
Right.
I mean, the crochet club could go to a senior citizen center and learn from other people how to make stuff.
That's actually a great example, Mr.
Yeah.
Mann, because if you recall, the end of last school year, I think I shared out one of the board updates, our crochet club donated the little blankets that they made to the animal shelter, and that was a weekend event. They didn't have a budget to fund a driver on a weekend to get there, so eventually what happened was the parents that could drove their children. Sometimes they carpooled, but not all kids were able to make it up to that. Here, if we had a van, Mrs. Martinez and Mrs. Trantham could have taken those kids.
So who would pay for the gas? Would the clubs be responsible for gas and stuff?
No, I would recommend it comes out of our gas supply, like we do with
Gas
our other
supply.
vehicles
Okay,
that we
I
currently own.
just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
they don't have money, can they still
Right.
Yeah.
do stuff? Okay, thank you.
So I'm all for it. How does the request come in? And is there a process that's been talked about to say who gets priority over something?
So we would probably look at first come, first serve, honestly, like we do for Christ Transportation when we have field trips. And they would have to, it would be embedded in the field trip request form, which that process is already in place.
Perfect.
And then the sports would just take priority of that to place or states or something like that?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, yeah. I think it would have to then be determined who needs it more. I mean, I don't want to say, like if someone can afford to pay Christ, that they would be put on the back seat, but it may come to that, that a less fortunate club may get priority over someone that
Okay.
can, but that's something we're going to have to work through. This is new territory, so I mean, we may ask for input on that side too, but yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So, everyone's approval, can we get it on Monday?
I would love it if we
For
could get them
two?
sooner, but.
Or are we going one?
Two.
Two?
Very, very grudgingly too.
It's just gonna the price is just gonna keep going up, so the
Absolutely.
longer,
So
the longer
longer
we do
we
it, then we're
yes.
gonna get the next request, and it's all of a sudden, instead of 58,000, it's gonna be 68,000,
Right,
and
yeah.
another year later, so.
Absolutely.
Tell them, give us a discount for two.
Well, and I don't know, because again, the quote was for one, so
Right.
maybe I can
Yeah,
negotiate
might
something
be
for two.
That's possible.
My aunt
Getting
wanted
one
to buy a
donated
pellet
would be
stove.
Oh, yeah, I would love to get
Decided,
it.
oh,
Just
I
both of
wondered,
them.
oh, well, they give us a discount for two, and they gave
Mrs.
us
Frank, you have a
25% off?
I do have a question. What happens when you have a group of 16 and you only have one advisor?
Sure. So, I don't know if you recall, but that actually came up in previous conversations about this. The club would have to find another adult that's available to drive, and then we would add them to the insurance like we do, just like the club advisor.
So it could be a parent, it could be another teacher,
A parent would have to have clearances in the district.
correct, yes.
Volunteer
Yep.
clearances, and we
Yep.
wouldn't have to pay for them, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, we'll put it on. I put a notation here that Mr. Mann, if approved Monday night, will try to negotiate a better deal for two. Actually, we need to know that ahead of time.
Right, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so.
Yep. So tomorrow when I get in, I will call them and see what kind of price they can give me for two.
Hey, they want the money.
Absolutely, yes, yep, absolutely. And then the last one's just to inform everyone, they have the schedule to start the sound system on the 19th. That was pretty much technology took care of that, and it should take 2 to 3 weeks. And hopefully by the end of the sound install, maintenance will have the sound panels up. so that they can do their sound checks the proper way and not have to return it.
Good job, sir.
And that's it for me.
Any questions? Seeing none, I will close that and move on and turn it over to Mrs. Phelps.
We will now bring the Finance Committee to order, and we will start with Nikki.
Hello.
Hi, Mrs. Fink.
I just wanted to start off just kind of updating everybody on all the different meal service styles we have going on. That was a change from last year to this year at all 4 of the schools, and just like how everything's been going there. Starting off with the high school and the lunch and learn. Lori, I feel, and Mike, so far so good. We had some congestion, understandably so, the first few days, and kind of as things ebbs and flow and the students get used to the I guess peak points of that hour of when things are more busy downstairs, they have seemed to be adapting to it already in this short time. So we've been having overall success with it. I think my ladies are taking naps after their shift because they're getting their steps in for sure. With just how we're having to do things now, but overall good feedback on both sides, and we'll be meeting weekly to just keep fine-tuning things as we go. So overall, great turnout there with that program so far. Merged lunches at middle school, similar concept of feeding both grade levels during the same lunch period, and we did add a third line there as well too. In my notes I forgot to mention we have third lines going at both the middle school and the high school, just to cut back on the congestion and give them that third place to go to check out and keep things moving along. So and then at Slatington, we're doing grab and go breakfast style for the 6th graders. Numbers overall breakfast wise at Slatington, we are just trying to, at the start of the year, it takes a while to the kids, get used to it and realize that we have free breakfast available and things like that. So numbers wise, we're hoping that breakfast in particular picks up over there. But again, overall, a good turnout with how we're doing things so far for the school year. And then, Peters, they are doing something. James had a great idea with his scheduling this year. He actually brings in half, so he still has 3 lunch periods, but halfway through each of those 3, he's like staggering the volume of students. So he'll bring like the first half in, they'll sit on this section of the cafeteria, then as they're leaving, the next come in. So it's just, helped again the overall flow. So just making these little changes has helped, make sure that we can feed as many students as we can and keep them happy and fed and, not having to wait for their meals. So, and the CEP program has allowed us some flexibility in how we do things, which is great, with using pitch counters to get our meal counts, using these special tally sheets and stuff like that. So if we can't always bring students through the register, if that ever goes down or anything, we have these backup plans in place to get our meal counts. Backpack buddies, I did put this on there because we did at the tail end of last year deplete all of our funds that we had for that. We do have some supplies with like the canned good items and stuff like that, just like the bags of chips and the cereal and the Nutri-Grain, like those type of things that have a sooner expiration date. We don't have those in stock right now. We are having the principals contact us if there's somebody in need but we're not necessarily like mass advertising it right now to like everybody to sign up. So I haven't sent out a form yet for that until we are able to open it back up, because we had some pretty high numbers the last couple of years in like the 150s or so that we were feeding every week. So but all the principals know that they can contact me if there's like a specific situation. We do have some supplies with the canned good items specifically that we can give to them weekly.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
dollar value of that program, what was the estimated dollar that may have been consumed last year?
So like for each like bag to get through the weekend.
Yeah, so at the, for
That
the
it
whole
costs
year,
us.
the total cost of the program for the year.
So actually, the last 2 years when we had the $10,000 were both those 2 last years. That actually covered us at like most, if not like the last month, I want to say, of the school year, last couple weeks. So we were able to spread that out. Because now this time in September is when I believe, or towards the end of September, actually last year is when we received our donation last year of the 10,000, and that took us all the way like through the end of the year. So not quite like a whole year, but for the most part, between what we had left over from the prior year and then when we started it last year, it did take us through to the end. So
if you get the credit union's 10,000 again, you would be able to pick this back up for most of the year.
for most of the year, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You'll get
So,
it.
yeah,
Right,
that's
Jerry?
Right. That is correct.
Good. It's desperately needed.
Yeah,
And
we'll see if we can
timing's
move it as
pretty
quickly as
close,
possible,
like
too.
Mrs.
Yeah.
Fink said, the timing's pretty close to when we started pushing it out and advertising it last
Yeah.
year.
We'll
So
see
we're
if we
not
can
that far
update,
off.
yeah.
if we can get that a little sooner to you, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was basically right when I came back from my leave
Right.
is when we kicked it off. So it was like right before,
Sounds
like
good.
beginning of November or something like that is when we started putting the bags together last year. So, and then I also just wanted to mention birthday baskets have been a big hit at our elementary schools. They have a form that the parents fill out to celebrate their student's birthday. We've added a couple offerings to that. And they're all Smart Snack compliant, so whether we're doing like snack bags or cookies or ice cream, they're all formulated to be healthier versions, so we're compliant with our wellness policy there. And then adult meal prices, last 2 points here. Each year over the summer, the state sends out a memo with a formula that you have to recalculate your adult meal prices. So the students are free under CEP. So this is just pertaining to if an adult staff member wanted to purchase a breakfast or lunch with us. And, you know, the formula takes into consideration with inflation and things like that. So last year we had to take our adult meal price from $4.10, I believe it was, the prior year, up to $4.75 for a full meal if they came through the line and purchased with us. And now breakfast was set at $2.60 last year. We had to increase it for this current year to $2.85 per the formula that the state puts out as like a minimum that you need to charge your adult meals. So, and then lastly, our steamer is set to be delivered actually next Wednesday, the 11th, which Connie is very excited about. And install is actually the next day, because there's 2 separate companies coming, you know, one's just delivering it and doing the drop off, and then another company is coming to install. So that's set up for the next day, the 12th. And then the dishwashers are tentatively for the end of September, early November, but they didn't solidify dates on that. But we do have plans in place. It's easier to work around not having a dish machine and just ordering paper products temporarily to get through versus the steamer. So the steamer, you know, we're trying to have delivery and install, you know, back to back so she can start using it right away. So, but yeah, that covers it all that I was gonna talk about for tonight. Does anybody have any questions or?
How many adult lunches do you sell?
Whew, I wanna say between all the schools, somewhere in like, for the month, like 150-ish, give or take, for the whole district. And then it also depends on the month, too, you know, the holiday meals and stuff like that, so we have more people come
Or
for
if
that.
it rains,
but-
do they go through the line
Yeah.
instead of the oversnows?
Yeah, so more so lunches for sure than breakfasts.
Okay,
For
thanks.
like the lunches, because we do like the salads and the sandwich meals and the different combinations of things, so.
Thank you.
But, all right.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moltores?
Sure. So this is just going to be a really quick update. I believe it was somewhere back in May, we had discussed that our energy provider who shops for our energy went out for bid and the prices were extremely high at that point in time. We are looking, our electricity contract with them is a 2-year contract and runs out in June of '25. Currently, they've been kind of testing the market, and the market looks like it's very favorable conditions right now. So the timeline right now is they are looking at October 1st to do an initial pricing and get return on that pricing. October 9th will be final pricing, and the recommendations will go out to school districts. And then October 9th or 10th, our contracts must be signed. So this is the one where the board has approved us in the past to evaluate what we're presented with and then to sign off on that contract, because it's normally 24, 48 hours. Doesn't give us the time frame in which to sit in front of a board to ask their permission to go to it. So it is looking favorable that we should have some pricing information for our electricity beginning in July 1 of 2025 for a 2-year period at that point in time by sometime in October. So, any questions on that?
Do you think it's gonna go up a lot from what we're currently at?
They're saying the market is favorable right now, so I think they didn't do it last time because it was not very good. It was not good at all. So I think they're seeing that it's going to be more in line with what we're currently paying, maybe a slight increase, and they must be comfortable with where that is. They haven't really shared with us exactly what the pricing is. They've just said that to us that it's coming in much more favorable.
I just know that the homeowner prices,
Yeah.
went up. I didn't know how much.
Yeah. So. Other than that, reminder, auditors will be in September 23rd to the 25th for our end of year audit. They're here for like 3 days during that, 2.5 days normally. Normally the last day they're only here till about noon or 1 o'clock. And then should get the report back sometime in October as well. So just give you the information that the auditors are coming in the end of the month.
Sherry, on the energy bids, is there something you need from the board on that level to say, if it's within a certain amount, we're okay? If not, do we have a choice? I guess the question. Or is it tough luck, you're just getting it?
Yeah, we actually are in a consortium with, from CSIU, from Central Susquehanna. They do our bidding for all of it. I know most of the Lehigh County schools are involved in that as well. If we don't, then it would be like, us going out and bidding it ourselves and going through all that process. Whereas we've always just kind of went in with what the bids were that we received from the Central Susquehanna community. So, because they buy in such big bulk, because it's their unit, it's a bunch of school districts that are all involved in that.
So I guess as long as it's not.
Right, yeah. And Provident Energy, I mean, that's why they pulled it back in May, because they were not comfortable recommending to us that these prices were even in line with what would be feasible for school districts. And that's why they said we had time, let's sit back and wait. I would think, like I said, they've played the market right now, they've tested it, they feel it's good right now. I think at that point in time, if it comes back and it's not good, they still have time to play. I mean, because our contracts aren't up till the end of June. So there's still time in there to play if the numbers would come back. So that's difference, again, that, would cost districts a lot of money. So. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's all I have for this evening.
Anybody have anything else to finance?
Okay, we'll close that, and then I believe education will go next.
All right, I'll open up the education meeting, and it looks like we're talking about positive behavior support.
Yep, we're very excited. We have a lot of accolades coming off of the 23-24 school year for all of our schools. So we're going to start off in our elementary schools with our Pennsylvania Positive Behavior Support Network and school-wide positive behavior interventions and support, where both Peters and Slatington received Tier 1 fidelity recognition for the 23-24 school year. So, Mr. Schneider, I can start with you.
Sure. As Dr. Stoker just said, we're so proud. We've received Tier 1 and Tier 2 continued fidelity recognition. They'll actually be, and I'm hoping to plan to send members of our team to the the PBIS conference this November. But we'll be receiving recognition at the 2024 Innovate and Integrate MTSS and PBIS Advanced Implementation Forum. So just reporting that to the board. We're very proud of our continued work on our PBIS system.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to echo everything that he just said, because Slatington also was received notification that we were also recognized for fidelity in Tier 1. We've been working through our Tier 2 fidelity, but we've been working with our consultant through the IU, basically the individual that does the assessment with us, the inventory every year, the TFI. However, he has now left, so we're kind of in limbo right now while we're figuring out who is the next person to take that over so that we can continue our Tier 2 fidelity. So, but we were recognized again for Tier 1.
That's great.
That's great.
Okay, and moving into our middle school and our high school, our secondary principals will speak to the CFES Brilliant Pathways. They were both schools of distinction for 23-24. So we'll start with our middle school.
Starting middle school.
Sorry.
Good evening. Thank you for the time tonight. For the second consecutive year, Northern Lehigh Middle School is a school of distinction for college and career readiness. Our portfolio is linked herein for everyone's review. I did also bring a hard copy. If any members of the board, Mr. Kern, I'll start with you. If anyone would like to peruse the hard copy of what is up there and also the letter from CFES. We're very proud of that. A lot of hard work goes into this. Attainment of a school of distinction is rated by how the school hits the CFES, what's called the 10-point plan. That's reflected in this presentation. I won't go through all the different 10 points, but you have to have evidence of all 10 of these components in your career and college readiness programming in order to qualify. You have to submit a yearly portfolio, which us in the high school both did. So again, this is what's here for review. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Stroll or take any questions.
I'm just thrilled that you're doing so well.
Thank you.
It's great to hear good news. Yeah, it's just not enough.
Absolutely.
Okay, so great job.
Thank you. So similar to the middle school, the high school also had, the CFES program has a 10-point criteria for college and career readiness planning. We met those 10 criteria and earned for the 4th year in a row a school of distinction. I'd like to just point out that 2 areas where really highlight our year. Our CFES team worked in conjunction with our guidance counselors and outside organizations. We brought in therapy pets. We brought in therapy goats, which helped students through manage their stress and their stress levels prior to academic testing, high stakes testing, but also we brought in therapy dog as well throughout the year, periodically. Not anywhere close to testing or anything like that. Just brought them in when they needed it. Also, we'd like to also note that we had 2 college and career readiness fairs, career fairs, I should say. One was the senior-only career fair that was presented by PA CareerLink, where we sent about 20 to 25 seniors down to the Arts Quest Center, and they learned everything about careers. In fact, one of our students was even, interviewed through PA CareerLink because he was so, they offered him a job right there on the spot. It was fantastic. And then we also, hold the annual career fair here at the high school, and we're really proud of that. That lends itself to a career fair wall, which students can go and find materials throughout the school year, and information about any careers and pathways or the such. So we're really proud of our CFES program, especially our CFES scholars and committee members. So if there's any questions, I can take those at this time as well.
Great effort, right, everybody. I mean, we're looking at K-12, really addressing a lot of needs of our students in various ways, so kudos. I know it's not easy to do all that, so it takes a lot of effort and work and teamwork. So good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and then that kind of concludes the 23-24 part, and now we're going to move into this school year. So moving into the beginning of this school year, we ran a summer program called KinderQuest at Peters Elementary School. So Mr. Schneider, if you want to talk about that.
Thank you, Dr. Stoker. I created a brief slideshow for us just to summarize the program. I know I presented to the board sort of the process and the thought process going into it and how it would benefit us. So I'm excited to share with you sort of what happened. Next slide, please. Is it Mr. Hill back there? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Next slide, please. So again, it was a 3-day program. August 6th through 8th, we ran it for 3 hours per day for those 3 days. And the purpose of it was really to prepare students for kindergarten, as well as give us a lot of benefits as well. So first, I'll highlight the staff. I've got a picture of the 4 teachers and their classes during KinderQuest. It was approximately, some of the classes were 19 per teacher, one of them was 20 per teacher. So on the top left is Mrs. McShane, the top right is Mrs. Hedges and their classes. Next slide, please. On top left is Mrs. George, and top right is Mrs. Ciesco and their classes. So these were the 4 teachers who were working with our students. Next slide, please. We also had a number of other staff that were there to work with students and to assist. Mrs. Cromer, our amazing school counselor. Mr. Klippel, our member of our special education team at Peters Elementary School. And not pictured, but also very valuable to the program, Mrs. Hoffman was there each day as the school nurse to address any medical needs. And we had a number of paraeducators who were there to assist our teachers and students. Mrs. Schrammel, Mrs. Silverio, Mrs. Thomas, and Ms. White. Next slide, please. So going through the 3 days, day 1 was really the focus of Welcome to Peters. If you didn't notice that picture, I took that one random 8 p.m. on it just happened to rain. And I was like, that's perfect. So that's going to be my screenshot for the next 100 million years. There's the rainbow and the gold at the end of the rainbow. So if you can go on to the next slide, our first day was really focused on getting the students into the building. We did building tours. The staff worked on school expectations, but really focused in 2 key areas, recess and lunch, oftentimes known as the 2 favorite subjects that students learn in kindergarten. The point of just getting them out to recess and lunch wasn't just to let them play and to feed them, but it was really those are 2 areas where there's a lot of students and a lot of learning to do regarding social skills. So we took them out and spent a good amount of time on that first day with the teachers, working with them outside on how to use the equipment, how to share, how to ask for help, those type of things. And in the lunchroom, which is a very, a challenging area in the building. We have 125 kindergartners this year. You would not imagine the first day of getting 125 5-year-olds and trying to get them to throw their lunch away and sit down at the right table. They don't remember who they are, where they sit, where they're going. And we got a chance to really work through that for 3 days in the context of the school, which was so valuable because I've never had such a smooth first week of school in the lunchroom, given that they got a chance to practice this with the teachers there in the classroom. Next slide, please. Day 2 was really focused on classroom learning. We didn't actually get out to recess the next 2 days because it wasn't a tropical storm when it hit us, but there was a tropical storm that came up and dropped 6 inches of rain over 2 days. So outdoor recess was not on the table, but there's some pictures of students in their classes. They did some projects with the teachers. And on the next slide, Mr. Hill, we had Mrs. Cromer and Mr. Klippel working in each classroom, focused on some specific social skills lessons, focused around kindness and sharing and what it means to be a good Peters pup. So they worked in each classroom, both the second and the third day, on different lessons with those students in small groups. Next slide, please. And again, day 3, classroom lessons, social skills. And the next page, on the next slide, please, Mr. Hill. We also had the added benefit of me doing a presentation on that last day with the idea of we're welcoming all the students into kindergarten. We also wanted to do a parent presentation to welcome the parents into our school community. Some of the themes within my presentation, I took them through a day in the life of a student in kindergarten. The focus being they're going to come home that first week, first month, perhaps the whole first year, and want to nap 2 hours every day because it's exhausting. Setting up your child for success. school safety, setting boundaries, and establishing a positive home-school relationship. So the presentation was about 35, 40 minutes and ended it right before the final lunch with their children. So we invited anybody who was at the presentation to stay, eat lunch with their children, or watch their children eat lunch if they chose not to eat, and then have a great moment at the end so they can see some of the learning we did within the context of the lunchroom, and then have a great exit to our program. So next slide, please. Here's some statistics from the program itself. There were 77 total participants. That represents approximately 61% of the total kindergarten enrollment. And it was actually, at the time of the program, about 64% of the enrollment, given that after the program happened, there were still students enrolling in kindergarten. The total amount of parents, or number of parents, excuse me, or guardians who participated in my Welcome to Peters presentation was 56, which is outstanding. It's a good majority of the parents who were a part of that program and had children as part of the program. So the question you always ask is, what was the benefit? Was there a benefit? So the next few slides, you can go to the next one, please, Mr. Hill. I elicited some parent feedback and guardian feedback to basically ask them what their perception was, what their child's perception was of the program. Question 1, would you describe your child's experiences as positive or negative? 2 answers, very simple. 100% of the respondents said positive. There was not a person who said it was a negative experience. The follow-up question I have, if it was negative, what would you change to make it more positive? And the only constructive comment was from a family member who would have liked a little more time to prepare for. They wanted to come to the family presentation, but I think 6 days notice wasn't enough. They needed more than a week with their work. So certainly for the future, if we decide to continue the program, that's a very easy challenge to fix. Next slide. These are the cutest ones. I asked the families, in a few words, how did your child describe their experience to you? So these are quotes around the wall. These are directly from, so much fun, amazing, I loved it. I'm a Peters pup, mommy. She described it as fun and reported that everyone was kind and welcoming. And the parent literally wrote, awesome, I'm not paraphrasing. So it's literally what their child said. Next slide, please. I asked the families, describe the ways in which you believe this program benefited your child. So from the parent perspective and the family perspective, this is again quoted literally what they said. They get rid of nervousness about the beginning of school, ease the tension and anxiety of the unknown. This was a really substantial one. Being able to experience the bus ride, cafeteria, the school without the grades being there made it so it wasn't such a stressful moment for my son. I know if he was supposed to transition right to all of those new experiences with so many kids around at once, he would have had a really hard time emotionally. So in other words, this program eased her child's transition. And last but not least, he didn't want to go back to daycare. He loves it at Peters and is ready to start. So our final feedback slide, Mr. Hill. Would you recommend this program to next year's incoming kindergarten families? 100% of respondents replied yes. And I took one and that didn't paraphrase it, but I cut it short just for to be succinct. But we're so thankful to have had this experience before sending our child to kindergarten. We had every question answered. We had such a positive experience, knowing that student's name. His first day would now be a breeze instead of an unknown. We're truly grateful for the staff for making it an easy transition. So it was fantastic. Parent feedback. Apparently we were the talk of the town because staff from other buildings was like, what's this kindergarten program? I was at church and there's people talking about it. So the next slide I'll show you again. Mr. Pine created this awesome little visual for us, which I think is super cute and represents our Peters pups well. And of course the purpose of the program was to help prepare the students. So our final slide, I'm not sure if this will work, Mr. Hill. Oh! I'm ready for kindergarten. So there's my presentation. I wanted to make sure those at board got a chance to hear a little more in depth about the program. I'm not sure if there's anybody that has any questions.
No, I just think it's great. We're interacting with the parents and the kids, starting off on the right foot. And frankly, getting that many parents there, knowing the age of the parents and a working schedule, wow.
Great job, very thorough.
Said less disruptions the first couple days of school?
I mean, it's hard to predict what it would have been. This year, I'll say that one of the biggest benefits we got is that we were able to teach them in the context of that small group. Even if you do everything perfectly right, when you bring 400 kids into a building, it's chaotic, the first 2 weeks. And even if you do it 100% right, it's extra noise, it's extra stuff. Right? And this was a way for us to work with the teachers, teaching exactly what they needed to teach in the context of where it's going to happen and in a very relaxed atmosphere. I think it was a huge benefit. And it also benefited us, Ms. Husak, because again, we were able to see the kids in that context because before we received them into the building, it's all just, it's all just paper, right? It's a name on paper and what a parent says or the little information we know. Getting to see them in the context of the school tells us a lot. So we were able to do some more strategic planning as far as scheduling goes because again, the purpose of this program was to run prior to us sharing out classroom assignments. So we did make a number of switches based on the teachers' recommendations because they then knew the students. And I'll say that I even spoke to a kindergarten teacher today. I saw Mrs. Hedges after school and I said, it just feels balanced. Where again, sometimes kindergarten scheduling, it's really darts on a wall. You don't really know until you know. So now we had a chance to know and it wasn't with everybody, but it gave us a much better shot to do some strategic planning for that scheduling.
And the baseline was those students went into the classroom of the teacher that they had the potential, or
not
you
always.
shifted it all?
So there were 2 teachers, Ms. Husak, that didn't participate because if there were 120 students, we would have needed them.
Sure.
But only 77 students, so we had 4 teachers of the 6. So there are there are students that came in and were in Mrs. Hedges' class, and now we're in Ms. Stubitz's class, or Mrs. George's class, or now Mrs. Hedges' class. So it didn't work out that way, and we didn't try to make it that way. We tried to sort of just balance it going in, and believe it or not, on a day-to-day basis, we were ready to change. Okay, let's try it with a different group today, just to try some different scenarios out. It just seemed to work pretty well where the balance, we were able to run the program for 3 days without many changes or alterations, but then afterwards we can sit down and just knowing who our teachers are and who the students are now, we were able to go, I think that might be a better fit, so we were able to again use the information that we now knew rather than we're guessing at, and that was a huge benefit.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Great, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
I just may, so thank you, kudos to you and your staff. You may have sensed that administration is going to strongly recommend that we continue this program next summer, which means that we're going to have to absorb it into our operating budget because this year it was funded through ESSER funds. I think this is one that we really need to make a commitment to funding moving forward because it has been a proven success.
Thank you, Marjorie.
More to come during budget season. And Mr. Hill, I'm sorry, I believe I knocked you off of the projector for the next presentation. My apologies.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Hauser is going to talk about his astronomy equipment and debut it.
I just want everyone to know how hard it is to follow the cuteness of kindergarten. There is nothing I can say that is more interesting than that. So about 18 months ago, I had met with Ms. Geronicus from the Ed Foundation about possibly granting the district and specifically the middle school kind of as the hub, but taking something to the next level in earth and space science and in general science and STEAM in the district. We know that the Ed Foundation has done a fabulous job over the years funding things like Summer STEAM Camp. So we were looking for something that was going to be kind of a 12-month program, but also really level up. We came up with the idea of something called Never Stop Looking Up. And this is an astronomy program that we've developed to promote not just the study of the cosmos, but also things like astrophotography, where now you're synthesizing the arts with science and hopefully opening doors. Something I learned about 18 months ago when we went at warp speed trying to get everything in line is that I was drawn into many black holes of things like supply chains and things being out of stock, and I have more puns coming. So for example, all the way to the right, the daytime picture of the Large Telescope that actually has about 8 different pieces of equipment making that function. So at different points in the year, certain pieces are available and certain things fall out of stock. So trying to navigate all that took a little bit of time. But in there was a silver lining in that I pumped the brakes a little bit because I had heard that some new equipment was coming, and I did bring a prop this evening. You needed the music. Okay. So believe it or not, this little thing that looks like an iPhone speaker is actually one of the most high-powered telescopes that I personally have ever worked with. It's incredible. It has magnification and viewing and processing power that is professional grade. And we were able, through the foundation, to invest in 3 of these. What I find fascinating about this particularly, I'm not just looking at my phone here, this is actually powered by your iPhone. So everything that, like now I have the view, now we're not, of course not going to see anything, we're indoors, but like everything that I'm controlling here is all done by the phone. So I can go in here and I can literally tell this to find anything, and after a few moments of calibration, it'll do that. So Mr. Stroll, what is your favorite nebula?
I don't know.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it so if we were outside at night, if you look at the top center image, the Whirlpool Galaxy, the one that is centered there.
Finding object.
Right now I'm telling the sea star to go look for it, and you can kind of see it moving.
Yeah. It's going to find it on the screen.
And it'll not find it on the screen, but like you can literally see it zooming in on the ceiling tiles here. But it'll go out and look, and all of the images that you're seeing up there, I took with this sea star from the northern Lehigh area. So you're able to do everything from lunar pictures, that was the August moon, about a half moon. The Whirlpool Galaxy, that was actually taken kind of out near Germansville. Whirlpool Galaxy is 25 million light years away, and that's a 10-minute exposure. So the longer you set the exposure for, it'll stack images, and you're able to get really, really crystal clear images. For example, the next one down right in the center, that's a star cluster, and if you look really closely at that image, maybe on your computer screens, if you look at the actual PDF, not projected, you can actually see the different colors of stars, which tell you different things about the age and dynamic of the star. So we're actually able to almost author our own textbooks for our kids with our Earth and Space Science program, because it's not just they're going to open up the page of a textbook and see a picture from Hubble. They're going to see something that was taken from somewhere in the school district, likely the middle school courtyard, and they can use that.
Center object failed.
That's because we're indoors. But so again, this will talk to you. It'll whatever you want to find, it'll go do it, and you can set it to take images and stack them. So we're also teaching kids some patience as well, because sometimes to get these nice and clear, it's takes a little bit of time. I will say the 4 images that are not the moon, none of that is visible with the naked eye. So if you were standing outside, even somewhere dark, you go out to Germansville, somewhere out there, none of that is visible, none of those stars with the naked eye. We're really opening things up for everyone. So we're going to do our debut of all of this equipment on September 19th. Everyone's invited. It is after the middle school open house and meet the teacher night. About 8:30 or so, still a little light out, but we're going to do an introduction to the equipment, get everything set up. We want to teach people how to use this. One thing I find fascinating, everyone's smartphone actually has greater processing power in its computer than the Hubble Space Telescope. Okay, so we got to find a way to maximize this, and here's a way that we can do it. Okay, the only reason that like those galaxy images are not as clear as Hubble is because I'm shooting through the Earth's atmosphere. If that were not a factor, they would be as clear as what you see in textbooks. The large telescope will do publishable, almost Hubble quality images, not quite the magnification, but the clarity of that. So I'm looking possibly in the winter when things get cool to start doing astrophotography with the big one. The big one, we're going to do some lunar geography at the September debut. And with the sea stars, we're going to begin processing different star clusters like what you see in the bottom right there. That's actually inside the Big Dipper. So that'll be pretty easy to find, and it's fairly bright. But we can take images of these and collect them and put a portfolio together for the Astronomical League and actually get credentials for our kids that they have viewed so many objects as part of our science curriculum. So that's all kind of fun. But 8:30 on the 19th, viewing probably starting right at 9 o'clock. Okay. I'll take any questions. The sky's the limit.
You have any more?
I got more.
Well done.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
That's exciting.
And again, Mr. Hauser shared there, and I just want to share our
Shutting down.
appreciation that this came from our Education Foundation. And this is really just the tip of what they're looking to do this year and moving forward. So more to come on that over the next couple months. Thank you, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Dr. Link, can you show the pictures for the next one? Are you attached? For the Lunch and Learn update? So next up is our high school, and we have launched the Lunch and Learn program up at the high school, and Dr. Bali is going to speak to that.
Sure. So those are two hard acts to follow. I always follow Mr. Hauser. But good evening, everybody. Good to see you. We have some stars of our own, Mr. Hauser, I have to say. Not as good as his superstar. So just before we start, because I think, a picture is worth 1,000 words and you don't want to hear me speak. But I do want to say something about Mr. Schneiderite and what he did, that we kind of, I was listening to everything he said. I've been an elementary principal, and so I know kindergarten and how important it is to set the expectations and practice them and practice them and practice them. It is no different at high school. Let me tell you, they might be bigger, but they are no different. So we knew that going into Lunch and Learn. And honestly, I can say now, it was one of our biggest fears, when Mike and I and Dr. Link and the two teams that went with us to Central Bucks, they kept saying, it's the systems you have in place. And if they are quality and dynamic and effective, it will work. And Dr. Waters was right. Because I would say, are you sure about this? He's like, yeah, Lori, I'm sure. A couple days before we opened, are you sure? Are you sure? Dr. Waters, yeah, Lori, just trust the systems. So a couple things that we did, similar to what Mr. Schneiderite did, was we took time, and it really helped us with our kitchen staff because we were very, not worried about them, but we wanted to put systems in place where they were not overwhelmed. It was not, taxing on their system. Yes, we all took, hour naps when we went home exhausted, but what we did was we spent a couple of days almost with a staggered system. So we would release a certain amount of kids. The other kids were being taught strategic lessons. This is what respect looks like during Lunch and Learn. This is what accessing your teacher looks like in Lunch and Learn. This is what cleaning up after yourself looks like at Lunch and Learn. This is what efficiently walking to the lunchroom if you're buying looks like, or getting your lunch looks like. And so it was very repetitive, but it was very strategic. And Dr. Link was actually part of our faculty meeting at the beginning of the year where we rolled out these lessons to the teachers. So we were all saying exactly the same thing, no matter if you were in Mr. Shuey's room or Mr. Latonen's room or Mrs. Wilder's room, it didn't matter. We were all teaching the same expectations. So we started doing that on Monday. Fingers crossed, we let half of the kids go. The other half were being taught. Then they switched. Half of the kids went to the classrooms to their homeroom teacher. The other half ate. It worked beautifully. We were so thankful, and we were like, all right, day 1, we did it. Day 2 comes, lesson 2, same thing. Now I'm starting, and we have a running, back and forth between the staff. How's it going? Going well? Yes. What do you need? What do you need? So, we did all of that. And then we started by Tuesday afternoon. Lori, I think they're getting it. They're getting it. They're getting it. Wednesday, we pulled back a little bit. So cut back a little bit on the lessons, but we still staggered the grades. So seniors, you went to eat at this time. Juniors, you went to eat at this time. Sophomores, and then freshmen. So little less structure Wednesday, still structured. By Thursday, we met with the kitchen staff Wednesday afternoon. How do you feel? You ready? Yep. We let them go. So I'm going to show you now, just kind of cycling through these pictures. These are groups of kids. Yes. These are kids just throughout the building. So this is an area we had. This is in the conference room in the library. And you can see pretty big smiles on these kids' faces. This was probably day 2. This is a student in the library doing work. I went over to him and I'm like, yo, buddy, what are you doing? He was catching up on something before his next class. Now, last week they didn't have a whole lot of work yet, but we still saw kids accessing teachers, getting retaught things, doing their homework. You'll see another student in the gym. Before he played basketball, he was sitting on the sidelines doing his work. This is kind of an information center. We have one on the main floor, we have one on the second floor, and that's just kind of like our master lunch and learn schedule on a visual for kids. Now we remind them on the dog dish every day, today is day 1, today is day 2, but everything is listed there, and it'll say, Mr. Long is available on day 1 at this time. He is having his lunch, though, at this time, so he won't be available. So if they have to go find a teacher, if they don't want to walk all the way to the classroom and they want to make sure they're available, that's kind of our information hub. This is just one of the high top tables. We got 40 of those high top tables. We put them around throughout the whole school on all 3 floors, and kids just kind of found their spot that they wanted to go. We have, the kids call it like airport seating. They like little like couches. Kids will sit there or they'll eat there. You'll see kids coming down the hallway there. Mr. Tout is there. He's working alongside of another kid at a high top table. So he's not actually in his classroom, but he's out there with a student working. So this is something, this picture was from last year when Dr. Link and I took some students to Steel Stacks, obviously. It was a leadership conference, one of those that we could definitely use that van for, that we would love to do that. And we're just trying to, remember how we talked about with the architects last, couple of whatever weeks ago it was. We're really working on physical stuff at the high school right now. That's what, and so we're trying to build like that pride. It's already there. But, we're going to recognize every group, the chess club, the crochet club. We're going to get these huge pictures of all of our student groups and just them doing amazing things. So I wanted to show a picture, some of the examples we're doing. This is a kid who was doing his work before he went and played basketball. You'll see some of the staff we have. Some of them are permanent staff in the gym during lunch and learn. Some cycle through. This is one student that was in Mrs. Shank's science biology room. He was getting some extra help from her. And I actually thought she was in there by herself. And I'm like, oh, Mrs. Shank, how you doing? Come on out in the hallway. She's like, but I have a student right here. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. So he was just kind of tucked in over there. So the expectation is, just to remind everybody, if no students are accessing a teacher, the teacher is expected to come out in the hallway. They're not staying in their classroom. And that way you can grab kids. Kids will remember, oh, I have to go see Mrs. Wilder today. So that's why they come out in the hall. That's just a group of kids at the end of the hallway. Some more kids there. You'll see some kids there. Can you go back to that one? That's actually down on the bottom floor by the cafeteria. That's actually that's Mr. King's. That's Mr. King's room. Yeah, that's on the main floor. But you'll see kids, there's plenty of seating for them, but they want to sit on the floor. So you'll see there's a group of kids right next to them on the floor. And then that is actually in the stairwell. We have a couple high top tables in there. And that's the library's the library lobby is right outside that picture. Our library gets very packed. That's a picture of that. This is right outside. This is an awesome picture because you've got a group of kids sitting there on their own, doing some things, and then you see Mr. Latonin through the door reteaching something to a student in there. So the kids in week 1 were already accessing their teachers. Some of our football players, that's right outside the gym. I know. Teacher, several students in Mrs. Urban's room. She literally, like, I went in there and I said, I don't mean to interrupt, can I take a picture? She was asking Mrs. Urban a question specifically about an AP course. So maybe not directly related to English content, but they're accessing people that they know can answer their questions. This is in our cafeteria. One of our students, every day he asks you trivia questions. And I walked down today, Dr. Bully, I have a question for you. So our kids are just awesome. A lot of kids playing basketball. Gym is a definite hotspot, for sure. Is that all we have there? Yeah. So I have to just thank you for your trust and your support, because I've been a principal a long time and I couldn't be more proud of the kids in this building and how seriously they are taking this. We had one behavior issue all of last week, and a kid threw something, and he was in lunch and learn detention today. And I said,
I saw that sign.
Hey buddy,
Detention.
I'm like, how you doing? You understand why you're in here. He's like, yeah, Dr. Raleigh. I was like, it's the only time you're ever going to be in lunch and learn detention, isn't it? He's like, yes. They don't want to miss it. We had one discipline issue, and it was super minor. So
they're allowed to just hang out if they don't have a teacher to go to or something?
Yep, they can either find, let's say they have a question for a math teacher. If Mr. Latonin's having lunch, they can go ask Mr. Long. See, and that's what's starting to happen. Like, they don't necessarily have to find their math teacher. That's kind of the whole purpose of this. We're trying to build community, amongst all of us. So, and it's happening. And it's happening in week 1.
I'm thrilled to hear that, because my neighbor's daughter was 100% sure this was not going to work.
Yep.
It was going to fail.
Yep.
The kids aren't going to do it.
Yep.
It'll be done in a week. It was her comment. Now, I have not seen her after school yet. But
Yeah.
that's why I'm thrilled to hear.
I can't wait till you talk to her, because I would love to hear, honestly, her perspective.
I'll connect with her this week. But that's why I was like, okay, good. It's working.
I do like the team learning, Dr. Bali, and
Yeah.
I agree. Sometimes hearing it one way from one teacher and just the explanation from another teacher just makes it click, because they say one thing differently. And that connection and that collaboration that those kids can have, accessing multiple different resources to learn the same thing is really powerful to that group. So kudos to the staff for making it work and reaching out to the kids, and to the kids vice versa, reaching out when they need it.
Yeah, I cannot say enough about the staff and how they've made this a priority, and how they've displayed that to the kids about the importance of this and the belief in it. And like I said, we were all on the same kind of communication strand, and we were seeing like seniors are good, juniors are good, freshmen still need some of this the teaching of the expectations. We're not going till the freshmen are ready, so it was like that whole, like, they were all bought in, and I couldn't be more proud. So yeah,
So
good stuff going at the high school.
Are they doing good cleaning up after themselves?
Oh, what do you think? I go around with
Yes.
a dustpan and broom, because I'm trying to model like what we expect, because we
Sure.
expect the kids to to clean up after themselves. Minimal
That's great.
things.
Tiny little morsels here and there, but
Yeah,
that's,
and we make,
that's more.
something we noticed that Dr. Waters did at Central Bucks was really, like in kindergarten, wow, thank you for doing the right thing. Thank you for cleaning up after yourself. You do that with seniors, and they love it. They're like, she noticed. Yeah,
I'll do that
we're
at home,
noticing
right, Gail?
everything. No. It doesn't work with my own kids, but I don't know.
Yeah, I walked under the stairwell area the other day, and there was a kid spraying down the chair and the table and wiping it up and cleaning up. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, we should have taken a picture of the carts we bought. Like, we bought cleaning carts with dustpans and brooms and spray and paper towels, and
Oh, cool.
the expectation is, and that was one of the lessons. The expectation is you clean up after yourself. This is not Becky's job. This is your job. If you are sitting here, the expectation is you clean up after yourself.
We also have students making it their own. Like, for example, some of those tables that you saw there under the stairwell, some students were creating origami out of the napkins, just like you would see like in a hotel room when you go or on a cruise. They were making that area
As their
own.
centerpiece.
We have some teachers who are setting up placemats and napkins and signs. We have teachers that are saying they're going to decorate for seasons right outside, some of their classrooms. So it's a lot of students and staff. They're all embracing it. We're proud of that.
That's awesome.
So just, Dr. Stoker and I have been down several times, sometimes together, sometimes differently. I'm trying to see the beginning of it, the middle of it, and then the end of it. I can vouch that they are cleaning up after themselves. Every time I go down and walk around, I talk to the different groups of students. And one young lady's response today, I think, kind of really drove it home for me because it's my career. I said, should we keep doing this? And she said, Dr. Link, if you take this away, you're not allowed to be the superintendent anymore. I was like, okay. So congratulations, Dr. Botley, Mr. Stroll, to you, your entire faculty, all the support staff there. I don't think the first kind of 2 short weeks, one short week, first full day of the next week, it exceeded my expectations. So I'm very, very happy of it, and just kudos to both of you. Good work.
Yeah, I love the vision. Kudos to both of you, the planning, obviously endless hours, your efforts. We navigated through some tough waters to get to this point. But the main thing is the culture that administration and staff has created, and a culture of trust. And the kids will feel it, and I really believe they're going to feed off of that. I don't think it's ever going to fail. I never thought it did. When I witnessed it myself, I thought it was fantastic. Everybody needs a pause in their day, including, and we forget, our kids go from desk to desk to desk to desk. Even though the teachers focus on their curriculum, that kid's exhausted going through that rigmarole. I mean, we haven't done it in many, many years. But can you imagine an adult doing a kid's schedule? It's impossible, what we ask for them. So taking that pause and that break, and then I like the self-governance. I mean, we're building young adults, making key decisions about themselves and what their needs are. That's fantastic. So kudos. That's off.
As we go forward, I'd love to have you share that with other groups or things, saying, hey, this is like a best practice or things like that. I mean, I realize it's early, but I'm hoping it gets to that point.
Yeah, me as well.
One more comment too. I tell you what, I love this meeting only because we got to hear from every building. We got to hear things that are affecting kids K to 12. You can see the teamwork of the administration. We're heading in a great direction. And kudos to all of you for doing that. And thank you, Dr. Stoker, for, I don't know if it was planned out this way, but it's perfect. I mean, I love hearing what's going on in the buildings. We're not there. We're making decisions of things we don't see. And so thank you very much. It was awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Carson. That's all we have for the Education Committee this evening.
We'll close that meeting and we'll open up with policy. Looks like we only have, one? Awesome.
All right, two.
Oh, I missed one? Okay. Better than 10.
Don't get excited. Next month next time we're back, there'll be a lot.
I won't be here next month, so that's okay.
I will turn it over to Dr. Stoker.
All right, and I'm going to kick it to Dr. Link, who's going to start with our first one, which is the naming rights policy.
And as I'm doing that, Dr. Stoker, if you could just record who's here for this one as well. I think you're in the Google Doc. So, as the school board is aware, I've been working very closely with our Education Foundation over the last probably about a half year, Mr. Fedorcha, so we've kind of been focusing on this next drive.
Maybe a little more, but yeah.
Maybe a little bit longer. Mr. Fedorcha is also deeply involved with this as part of the Education Foundation. As you're aware, they are, we are great benefactors of the foundation's generosity here. Mr. Hauser just shared some of the amazing things that he's doing in the middle school with his students and faculty, all because of the foundation. Right now, we are in the development phase of a capital campaign with the Education Foundation. In the capital campaign, so for the foundation, there's a subcommittee of some foundation members as well as a couple outside people with experiences in raising significant amount of funds to support a school district. This capital campaign, some of the things that we're looking at right now tentatively are kind of 3 different buckets, right? So full immersion learning. And we're doing things like our students being able to participate in EF tours and literally see the world. Things like experiencing outer space through the use of technology. Things like hopefully coming into what is called a immersive learning center, which is an entire room where all the walls are acting as screens for students that maybe can't go on an EF tour, or maybe they don't necessarily get to visit a museum or one of the natural wonders in the world, but they can do it in that room through very high technology, high levels of technology that you can interact with. Also for our staff to experience professional development in a room such as that. Wellness in our community and in our schools is another area that the foundation would like to work on to bring maybe some resources onto our campus for our students, but then also make them available for the community. For example, what are we going to do with that defunct tennis court down there? Is there any way that we could renovate that into a complete net sports complex, but also make it something that is part and parcel with what is called unified sports. Unified sports are so all members of the community in the school district can participate no matter their physical ability. So things like unified bocce ball, unified net sports, things like that, even if they may have a physical disability. Also things like environment and sustainability. We have 2 beautiful courtyards on this main campus here, one at Slatington Elementary School, one down at the middle school, and they're being underutilized, right? We want to turn that into like an astronomy hub at the middle school, but Mr. Hauser is also working on some significant aquaponics opportunities that was actually launched by Mr. Weber when he was up here at Slatington Elementary School. Well, taking that to the next level where we could have a full complex that goes from what is currently the greenhouse and then works its way out to the courtyard. So kids can experience growing their own vegetables, sustainability. Also maybe to turn our courtyards, both of them, into places that are natural and very supportive of local pollinators, right? There's programs out there for that. Our garden club here over at Slatington Elementary School, is there a way that we can make that so it's really truly much more of an area that's suitable for young children to learn about gardening? All of those type of, like those 3 buckets, our foundation would really like to support Northern Lehigh School District. But they're looking to raise significant amounts of dollars. I'm not just talking $10,000 or $20,000. I'm talking like millions of dollars. Some of our local school districts are doing that with their foundations. This is something that we really want to dig into and try to do. One of the things that potentially happens in these scenarios is a donor may say, I would like to donate $500,000. I would like to donate, matching. If the school district puts $100,000 towards a net sports complex, I will put $100,000 towards it. Businesses, individuals, whatever it may be. Sometimes with that, school districts have to make the decision about naming rights. If St. Luke's, our healthcare partner, will step up and say, we really like this idea of turning a portion of your campus into something that's a learning opportunity for your students, but also may be accessible to the local community members for certain hours in the evening or on a weekend to do things like play pickleball or play tennis or whatever it may be, that aligns to their mission for community wellness and health. Are we comfortable with that being sponsored by St. Luke's? Are we comfortable with having St. Luke's maybe on the silk screens hanging on the fences, kind of like we do down here at the football field? You know, other big donors, potential donors, are we comfortable with that? I would hope that we would be, if it's going to be to the benefit of our students and our community, but we have to do it in a way that's responsible. In other words, we got to put parameters around what naming looks like. We have to, as a school district, retain control and governance of the people that want to donate the money. Is it a group that aligns with our core values and our missions? Or is it something where we're so opposed to that we would say, you know what, thank you, but unfortunately it doesn't fall within our policy. So we're going to have to turn that down. I can't think of an example right now, but I'm sure there's that. We have to be prepared to make those decisions. And for us to do that, it would make our work easier and also make it more transparent if we had a policy that we could follow for naming rights within a school district. So I am recommending that we come up with a naming rights policy in the event that any individuals or corporations or organizations come forward and say, we want to make a significant contribution to your school district, but we would like people to know that we did it, which means that we would like to have our name on it somewhere. So that's what I'm kind of bringing forward in front of you right now. So everybody kind of understands. So that's kind of the conceptual view of this policy, and the triggering event behind it is near the end of October, beginning of November, we're looking to fully launch this capital campaign with our Education Foundation. Okay. Then what I would like to do is just kind of share the first draft of the policy here. And this was linked in the agendas that you received last week, but it's also up on the screen here. So again, purpose of it is, so this is a policy that the school district does not yet have. So this would be new. Dr. Stoker was able to gain some sample policies through PSBA, them sending us policies at other districts that have naming right policies. And then some members of our foundation were also familiar with some school districts that had naming right policies, and they also forwarded them to us to review. This is actually like a combination of 2 or 3 different policies that we found. So we kind of took parts of each policy that we liked and tried to bring it into one common one that makes sense for Northern Lehigh School District. So the purpose, you can see there, is to give the school board and the Northern Lehigh School District to recognize 2 circumstances in which the district may approve naming rights or sponsorships. One would be naming rights in recognition. So this is if we would want to honor or memorialize outstanding individuals and organizations that have made substantial contributions to the benefit of the district. This does not necessarily mean that there's a dollar amount attached to this one, but it's possible as a school district, the school board may say we want to name a science wing or a building or an athletic facility after an individual that has truly separated themselves and made themselves worthy of such a designation. Okay, so that would be naming rights and recognition. The second opportunity would be sponsorships and consideration. This is where individuals or organizations would want to contribute money, or perhaps they would want to do something like it is a construction company that's willing to do all the construction at no cost, you know, something like that. So there's a dollar value, it's just not a direct donation to the school district. A lot of the sections you'll see are common across policies, the authority, delegation of responsibility. You'll notice here that here we're recommending that the delegation of responsibility would kind of be like the superintendent would be kind of the liaison between potential donors and then first the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And we would develop an AR if this policy is approved to say what that kind of two-way or maybe multi-way communication looks like. We would also develop a list of prospective sites which names could be placed on within the district. We would ensure that if we were to move forward, that the signage itself would be done in a professional and tasteful manner. And then also recognition for either the donor or the individual that we're looking to honor. Guidelines. If you want, I can go through each one of these individually. Or if you have questions about specific ones, you can ask me or you can follow up with me afterwards. Again, this is all readily available on our website and in all of your emails. So anything that they give to us, it remains the property of the district. In all cases, the board retains control and ownership of the named facility or facilities associated with sponsorship. The individual or group that's making the donation does not necessarily get to make the decisions unless the school board grants them direct authority to make the decisions. It does not necessarily mean that we're endorsing any sort of single commercial product or business or enterprise. This money is not part of the general operating fund. The reason why it is being donated is the only reason that we can use it for. So we couldn't say, we have $400,000 that was donated for, say, a science wing upgrade, and then use that to put a playground in at Slatington Elementary School. Okay? It wouldn't go into the general fund where we could then switch the purpose of it. Process for approval. If anybody would want to come forward and say, I'm requesting, I want to make a significant donation, but I would like to have some sort of naming rights, I would be the first, or whomever is a superintendent would be the first point of contact. I would then take that to the Buildings and Grounds Committee for study and review. Buildings and Grounds Committee may request additional information and so on. If the Buildings and Grounds Committee recommends the request, they would then recommend to the board to vote to approve or deny the request. I would be the liaison then between the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the full school board. The board shall request written agreement by review. Any agreements that we would come to before anything moves forward, it would have to be reviewed by our legal counsel. This is where we start getting into written contracts about what are the actual naming rights for each individual circumstance. The board gets to decide, whether ultimately we move forward or not. Same kind of process for naming rights and recognition, non-monetary. Again, we emphasize that it's ultimately the school board that gets to make the decisions. Administration may recommend monetary valuations of sponsorship levels as appropriate. So for example, if we are looking at naming a gymnasium, or we are looking at naming our new baseball softball complex, that's where I would sit down with the administrative team and say, okay, let's research this and see what's an appropriate amount. That if somebody wants to name the baseball softball complex, what should we expect as a donation? And then we would report our findings back to the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the board. Administration would be authorized to solicit and receive proposals from individuals, groups, or business. A lot of this would be superintendent's work with the Education Foundation. When we would go to launch the capital campaign, where we go from what is a silent phase to an active phase. The silent phase is more about not necessarily going out to individual community members. It's about going out after more so like large corporations, and for us to schedule appointments with them and go out and kind of put this in front of them. We would respect the privacy of student and staff information, so no names, addresses, contact information would be available to commercial sponsors. Anything that's not already available on our district websites. Everything must comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and administrative agencies. Also, number 14 is no agreement could violate any sort of protective class protections. Any sponsor would need our permission to use our name, logo, or designs. There would be hold harmless clauses written throughout.
And we could revoke.
That's the last one. The board reserves the right to reject, cancel, or revoke sponsorship agreements at any time. We really tried to make it so the ultimate authority rests with the school boards from the very start through any sponsorship agreement, and then also have the decision if they're saying we need to end it because for some reason the donating organization or individual did something that was, so out of line with our mission and beliefs that we would say we are no longer to have your name on our piece of property. Administration is recommending that this policy go for first reading next week. Open it up to all the school board members for consideration. And then again, to bring it back in October, after any revisions that may come out of Monday night, bring it back for a second reading in October. This is no guarantee that we're gonna get somebody that wants to make donations like this. But if that happens, we wanna make sure that we have a process and rails to work within to move forward in a way that protects the district.
Will the attorney take over that policy and make sure we're...
So this has gone, so what we'll do is we'll send it back to PSBA's legal for them to review. So they have their own set of legal advisors, attorneys to take a look at it as well. So it wouldn't necessarily go back to our school board attorney, it would go to PSBA's division that handles policy development.
And that would go back prior, we would have to potentially vote first reading
Yep.
in September.
Yep.
PSBA still could look at it to
Yes.
look for changes in October.
And
just
even if
for
approved
clarification.
in October, we could still send it to them afterwards for a final review before we can post it, which is what we typically do on our websites.
Thank you.
And if there was any significant changes, we would bring it back again.
Thank
for,
you.
what would be November.
Board members here, good with going first reading?
Okay to move it to first reading?
Thank you. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Stoker for policy 803, school calendar.
Thank you. Every spring, we, as an admin team, recommend a calendar to the school board. The school board reviews that and then makes any necessary changes and then approves a school calendar every year. In December of 2023, so in the middle of the year, there was an act that was passed which amended what we put into the school calendar. Typically, historically, it's been 180 days. And then at the elementary level, we've had to have 990 hours, and at the secondary buildings, 900 hours of instruction. If we have a half-day kindergarten program and some other things, it's like 450 hours and things of that nature. So we've always had to meet the day requirement and also the hour requirement. What was passed in December of 2023 was to make it an either or. So school districts could opt to have 180 days or meet the hour requirements. In the past, what we had to do is, if we weren't going to meet the day requirements, we would sometimes have Act 80 days for various reasons, for parent-teacher conferences, for professional development, for comprehensive planning. There's a variety of different reasons that you can use Act 80 days. With education continually changing, having gone through the pandemic, there are different school districts that are doing different things. Some are having a 4-day school week with longer days. Some are continuing to go as we have historically. This just allows flexibility. So we can either follow the 180 days or we can follow the number of hours that are required at each level. So that's what this policy is. Once that, the law was passed, which updated the school code, PSBA published their updates to the school calendar policy. The school calendar policy we've always had. We updated, I think, the last time during the pandemic because we had to put an emergency provision in there. This time when they passed it, because it's in either the days or the hours, we were able to remove that provision that was put in there during the pandemic. We no longer need, in times of emergency, we can alter the school day or the school year or things of that nature. So now this policy just gives essentially districts flexibility to either do instructional days or instructional hours. We are still looking to maintain the 180 days of school, with the exception of the Act 80 days, which still counts towards the 180 days. So we're still going to have the 3 Act 80 days that we have in there, but we're looking to meet the 180-day requirement for a school year. So that's what this policy is. It's just essentially saying now it's an or, not an and. Does anybody have questions on that? Okay. Can we take this one for first reading on Monday night to the school board?
Any questions? Okay to move it to the board agenda.
And that's all we have for policy for this evening.
Any comments or questions from the board members or visitors prior to closing? All right, I'll go ahead and close policy and turn it over to Mr. Kern for extra co-curricular.
All righty, let's open up extra and co-curricular committee. Mr. Geis.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. First of all, fall sports update, give everybody an idea what's going on. We're like in a third full week of sports here in the fall. We are up about 10% in number of students participating over last year. So year over year up about 10%. We've seen some really good numbers, some increase in our numbers in all of our sports, which is great to see. It's a great trend. Utilizing the stadium full bore here. We're offering our Pixelot service, live streaming. We also have the online ticket sales. We also have credit card sales at the concession stand. Everybody has an option no matter what they want to do, whether they want to watch it at home, they want to show up, they want to use a credit card, they can purchase tickets, use cash. So we've given them numerous options as well as season passes as well. So it's been a great thing for our community to be able to come in and see that. In regards to some big events, hopefully you're able to see our Military Appreciation Night on the 23rd. We had a nice little flyover from the PA National Guard. Coming up, our next huge event would be the NLYA Family Night, in which we get all of our youth athletes come out. And that's going to be on the 13th. Then we have the Homecoming Bonfire. I believe it's October 3rd, and then we have homecoming on the 4th, and then we're going to have our first responders night on the October 18th, and then we end the season with senior night on the 25th. But overall, athletics this fall season has been going well, good participation, things have been running fairly well.
I just want to comment on the military night. Heard fantastic things. I was unable to make it, but community-wise, things posted on social media, it was fantastic and phenomenal, and the amount of work that people don't realize how much time and effort and sign-offs, Mr. Geis, that you had to go through. Want to really say thank you for taking such ownership of that and bringing that to our district. It was fantastic, seeing it on TV and being able to watch it and sharing what our district is doing. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
That was pretty cool.
Yes.
It was phenomenal to watch.
I actually had a friend who was at the Northwestern game who texted me and said, hey, they just flew over stadium, they're on your way. Because I told him, he's actually a pilot, so he knew what to look for, because I told him when we were golfing that day what was going to happen. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was nice. 2001 graduate Eric Barnett, who's now a major in the PA Air National Guard, great story with Eric. Just a phenomenal story on how well he's come around and the things that he's done. So he definitely integral in that whole process. It's cool.
Thank you.
Mr. Geis, for that section of your report, could you send me your notes then?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The next part is, we mentioned Pixelot. Here's something pretty cool is we're right now starting year 5 of our Pixelot agreement. And that is, for those of you who are unaware, that's our NFHS network video cameras. It has software that follows the ball, whatever the contest is in the stadium, as well as in the high school, whether it's a wrestling match or a basketball game. And I don't know how it works. It works. It also integrates a scoreboard in there, and there's subscribers. It's a nationwide network for anybody who has the NFHS network system. We have that. We signed that contract 4 years ago. They're looking to renew. The great news is it costs $0. The second best news is we've seen revenue share in that. We're averaging about $917 a year in revenue share, so that's free money for the district on people who purchase subscriptions and watch the contests. So my recommendation, working with Eric Hill and Sherry and Dr. Link, is we'd like to put this up Monday night for renewal, renew the program, and again, $0 cost.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Geis. Put a note here. Up next, there's been a lot of recent positive developments in our softball baseball complex renovations, as far as getting ready to launch things. We're going to need some direction from this committee this evening about what moves forward to our September board meeting. First, I would like Mr. Geis maybe to share out a little bit of the background on how you're currently accommodating fall practices and what you plan to do during a construction phase.
Yes. So that whole area where we have football practice, soccer practice, baseball and softball, that's completely off limits. So once, and you'll probably drove by and you saw some of the carnival flags up, so that's restricted. So we have to use existing grassy areas for that. And I think we've developed a plan, working with Chris Mann and his staff, we've put a half field hockey field over where the bonfire is. We still have our full field where we have field hockey grass, so we've turned that into half field hockey, half soccer. And then we put a half soccer field in right near where the portable classrooms, the old portable classrooms are at the middle school. So that's accommodating both our field hockey and soccer teams over in that area. Up where we have javelin and discus, Chris's guys have been able to put a nice sized field up there, and that's able to accommodate our football and junior high football program, our middle school football. So we're able to fit everybody there. Right now the plan is for NLYA to come in and use the football practice fields at the javelin and discus. We also have NLYA field hockey using the fenced-in area right near the middle school for those youth practices. And as we get closer to the end, we're gonna just kind of see how things go. Maybe we can accommodate the turf field since we have lights. As we get a little bit later on in the season, work with NLYA at that point, but we also have to juggle around our senior nights. But otherwise, the coaches have worked together. They are in for the common good. Great communication among all of our head coaches. They know the plan, they know this is the betterment for the Northern Lehigh School District, and have been very cooperative, very appreciative. So that's kind of the update from a practice plan and game plan.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Today, Mr. Mann attended a meeting along with our construction team, Land Tech, and the engineer behind designing this new complex, or this renovated complex, from ELA Sports. And that meeting was at the, not the Planning Commission, but the LCC, Lehigh County
Conservation District.
Conservation District.
Their office down by Tony Park.
Could you share out what kind of came
So
out of that
it was-
meeting
it
and
was
the purpose of that meeting?
Sure, sorry. It was a pre-construction meeting. It's something that the LCCD needs to do before anyone's allowed to even break ground. Like Dr. Ling said, it was myself. It was Brad from Land Tech and Tyler from ELA, as well as John from LCCD. John is the engineer for our particular job. He had 15 points that he wanted to get across, make sure would be taken care of before this job could start. Start date is Monday, the 9th is when they're going to start, Land Tech's going to start bringing construction equipment on the site. They hope to be digging in the basin by Friday. Not knowing what's in there and what they're going to go through, there is no real finish date. But the engineers wanted to know when they were going to break ground and approximately when they could come back and inspect that. So after the basin is done first, then they're going to continue on to the baseball and softball fields itself. The projected finish date is sometime in June. That's all dependent on how grass is filled in and what kind of winter and fall and spring they have.
And Mr. Mann, that was equipment arriving on the 9th?
Correct.
And breaking ground on the 13th?
Correct.
Okay. Friday the 13th?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, sir.
You said it.
Long weapon to shovel.
So this has been a very delayed breaking ground due to the permitting that we had to work through at various levels through the county and through the planning commission. So the good news is they are ready to put shovels in the ground at the end of next week, equipment arriving on the 9th. Because of these delays and some of the kind of final engineering things that we realized, administration is recommending a change order. The change order encompasses several things. Those several things are, one, because we had to enlarge the basin to get it through permitting, the baseball scoreboard, we're recommending that is relocated, our existing scoreboard relocated actually to the baseball outfield. For aesthetics and also for better line of sight on the softball field, we're now recommending, if we're already running the electric out there for baseball, if we have to do that, we would like to move the baseball scoreboard, same scoreboard, so it's on the softball outfield, better line of sight for the fans for softball fields. We are also recommending that we put in a flagpole kind of in the center of the two fields, not in center field, but situated near the center of the two fields. So during the games that we do at our football stadium, we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. It is on a nice flagpole, high enough for everybody to see whether you're at baseball or softball, and it has the solar lighting because they have to be illuminated. That is a second change order. One of the alternatives that was in the original approval was to improve the outfield under drainage for the softball field. That was an alternative that was approved originally. We are recommending that we do that alternative. That money was already in the budget that we had set aside. Because of this delayed grow-in season, and as we continue to look into it, we want at this point to have the best product out there for our student athletes when they take the field, and we are now recommending that we do not seed the outfield for baseball or softball, but that we go with a sod installation. All indicators are in the research that we've been doing is that it is a quicker install. It is there is less patchwork to go back and have to do than if you're growing in from scratch, from seed. It's more hardy and you're less likely to have die off once it is installed. We are recommending that we do, so the major change order in these kind of components here is the installation of the sod in the baseball outfield and the softball outfield. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
No. That comes to, and I had mentioned this in a previous board update, we're looking at approximately an increase due to these recommended combination change orders of $230,000. Administration is recommending, as your superintendent, I am recommending that we move forward with that combination change order. We have money available for that. We would not have to touch the fund balance. You're aware that we have a capital reserve in our budget, which is different than fund balance. It's for capital projects. Ever since this project was approved, we've been receiving donations from St. Luke's. That money has been going into this capital reserve fund, as well as there were capital reserve funds in there that have just been sitting there for some time in case we ever needed them for a major project. All in, we are looking at nearly $286,000 that is sitting in that fund. Administration is recommending that we use the money that's available in that fund to cover the change orders, and it would still have the recommended contingency funds in there. Whenever you do projects like this, you always have contingency funds built in just in case something else comes up. It would have a contingency funds available, and it would cover all the change orders, and it would not come out of our general operating budget or our current fund balance. So that's where we are in this process. So I'll kind of open that up for conversation.
So you said contingency fund, so is there still a contingency fund, or is that being used up now?
No, that would be part of, if the board approves this change order, part of that change order is a built-in contingency fund that is within that $230,000.
Okay.
So it's not 230 on top of, it's not a contingency fund on top of a 230, it's part of the 230.
So if you want changes in the future, we wouldn't have anything set aside for that?
Well, if something happens between the time they, so let's just say you approve this change order, and then during the construction process, something else happens. For some reason, we had to come up with, like, say, another $30,000.
There'll be something.
Yeah, if something else comes up, it would be in there. Okay, it would be in that, what you're approving as part of this change order. If it comes up it's more than that contingency fund, then I would have to come back to the school board and say, we need another, $20,000, $25,000. I recommend that we take it out of what's now left of the capital reserve.
So there's still some.
If the capital reserve is exhausted, then it would be, then I would come back and say, we need to make a decision about whether we want to do X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. And at this point, we're looking at fund balance.
Because we know stuff comes up. I mean, realistically.
Yes, I agree. I've seen it in my own home projects, and my wife points it out to me every time. That's why when you work on projects of this magnitude, you have contingency funds built in.
Are moving the couple things that are listed there, are they gonna impede on any of the other fields, like the practice fields in the future?
No, thank you for
flagpole,
so
all of those moving parts.
Thank you for asking that question. The scoreboards will actually, and Mr. Geis or Mr. Mann, correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually almost going to kind of be integrated to the high outfield fences. So part of baseball and softball's footprint. The flagpole, I forget the specs. I can't quite remember where that's going.
It's big.
Yeah. But we would position it in a way that is like, that's not going to impede practice football or practice soccer. So.
And I think I can comment with baseball and softball, there's an area kind of between the baseball, softball, the center fields.
Yep.
That's kind of like where we're looking for scoreboards and flagpole, which would be unaffected from football and soccer practice.
Okay, and I hate to ask this question, safety reasons, if somebody's walking through there, it's still give enough.
Yeah, are you like during a game or something?
Like, just even going out, if they go back and walk there, they can walk between those two fields.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if those scoreboards and the flagpole are there, it's not gonna cause any, we don't have to block it off.
No. And then because we're still going to need to be able to get one of our zero turns through there.
Thank you.
To cut grass. So it'll be
Perfect.
large enough to maneuver a zero turn through there.
Awesome. see it when it's done.
Sounds good.
And so are you still seeding then where the soccer field is and the football practice field is? Are you still gonna seed or is
So
that
that's
sponsored?
not part of this project.
Okay.
Those are gonna be left intact to the greatest extent possible. It wasn't part of this project. Our maintenance team does the seeding and the care for those two areas, and they will continue to do that. And they will also continue to do it for the two new fields. So then I'm looking for direction, if I can put an agenda item on Monday night's school board evening, recommending the change orders to move forward.
Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
Okay? Again, I appreciate everyone's support of this project and the patience with this project. It's gonna be well worth it when we are done today, when we are at the high school. Dr. Bali and I were visiting the different areas, and when you go in the hallway behind the gym, like if you're going back towards a wrestling room and you have that big wall of windows overlooking this complex, that's where everybody's gonna wanna sit. Probably one, to watch the construction, but two, it's a beautiful view looking across this athletic field's up to the back of the stadium, so I think that's where the picture should come from. Yeah, that's the line, right there.
I want to do one other question. The bonfire, is that gonna affect the usage of soccer or
Well, the
field hockey?
bonfire would be October 3rd. So at that point, we only have another like half week of middle school field hockey.
I got you.
So at that point, we have teams who are ending their season on the sub-varsity level, which is going to create for the varsity. So it actually, the timing works out pretty well in that aspect.
Mr. Geis, we secured places for our baseball and softball field, our softball teams to play yet? Did we do that?
Not yet, that's it, a work in progress.
Okay.
I have a lot of information, I have a couple of other ideas. So I want to kind of put everything together, make sure I get all the information before I give bits and pieces. But I am working on that, and
That includes busing the practices
correct,
and all that?
yeah, yes, yep.
You trying to keep them local then, Mr. Geist, as much as possible?
I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try to work with community members and stuff, so I have a couple different ideas as we move into the spring. And yeah, I'm optimistic at this point, so we'll see.
That's all we have for ECC this evening.
We all good? All right, we'll close the extra and co-curricular committee, and I think that ends the evening.
That's it. Thank you, everyone.